While Samuel Little was terrorizing women all over the country, another serial killer in Washington was targeting the same groups of vulnerable women. On July 15th, 1982, the body of Wendy Lee Cofield was found in the Green River. Over the next month, four more bodies were found along the same riverbank. They were Deborah Lynn Bonner, Marcia Faye Chapman, Opal Charmaine Mills, and Cynthia Lee Hines. King County authorities knew right away that they had a serial killer on their hands. There was no doubt. What followed was a 19-year hunt for the Green River Killer. King County authorities are still looking to find the remains of 3 likely victims, to identify and locate 2 more. There's another associated unsolved case as well. As always, we'll make shorter videos to share for these women, and if you can help in any way, if you have a family member who went missing, who might have been in or around Seattle or Tacoma, please reach out. Help give them back their names or bring them home if you can. There were a number of suspects back in 1982. Police were looking for someone who used the services of sex workers. Gary Leon Ridgway was one of them, but authorities weren't able to link him to the murders at the time. His childhood wasn't all that remarkable for a serial killer and necrophile. He had a domineering mother who would wash him after bedwetting incidents until he was 13. Definitely bizarre, and he would say that he felt conflicted about his mother. He was attracted to her, but also angry, and also fascinated and fantasized about killing her. His father was a bus driver who complained a lot about sex workers in Salt Lake City, where he grew up. He was dyslexic and had a lower than average IQ. Ridgway frequented sex workers from the time he graduated high school in 1969. He continued that through 3 marriages that all ended in divorce. His second wife would say that Ridgway wanted her to have sex in public with him or in other inappropriate places, like in the locations where his victims would be discovered later. Women in his life complained about how often he wanted sex as well. He would say that he had a love-hate relationship going on with sex workers. He didn't want them around until he wanted to use their services. And by use their services, I don't mean pay. Ridgway hated having to pay for sex. Between 1982 and 1984, a large number of sex workers and runaway girls began to disappear along the Pacific Highway South. They were all getting into vehicles, usually lured in when the driver would show them pictures of his little boy. Most of them would be dumped in the Green River or wooded areas near the SeaTac airport, though sometimes they would be found at other dump sites throughout South King County. 4 of them, though, were found in the Portland, Oregon area. He continued to kill after 1984, but likely less frequently. That, or we just haven't found those victims yet. He would say he only killed 3 victims after 1984 because he had married his 3rd wife and she made him happy. Ridgway thought he was smart. He was not. He killed the women and girls either at his home, in his truck, or in his secluded area. All of them were strangled, all dumped. He would sometimes return to engage in necrophilia. He would leave his victim in clusters near one another, moving dump sites now and again. He contaminated many of the dump sites with DNA from other people by collecting cigarette butts and gum and even ripped material from other people. A few times, he would kill in Washington and then dump the remains in Oregon. He hoped it would confuse police. Ridgway wasn't smart, though. He was just lucky. His earliest victims were at a time when DNA technology was just getting underway. You needed bigger, cleaner samples then, and you needed someone to compare them to. The technology, though, would be refined. Though he left other samples there, he also left his own, a lot of his own. Along with his own DNA, he left other markers as well, which you'll see. The police formed the Green River Task Force, and they had an unexpected source on their side, Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy, who had been caught and jailed. The task force interviewed him several times, taking away insights into the psychology and behavior of the Green River Killer. What motivated him? It was Bundy who told them that the Green River Killer was a necrophile, and they should stake out any fresh dump sites they find, waiting for him to come back. They also had the FBI, which by the early 80s had a well-developed, skilled behavioral sciences unit that produced excellent profiles of suspects. They kept Ridgway on their radar, but had nothing on him in those early years. He passed a polygraph test, and in 1987, hair and saliva samples were taken from him. Eventually, those samples were analyzed, and an arrest warrant went out for Ridgway 14 years later. He was charged with 4 murders and then 7, some connected by DNA and some connected by itty-bitty tiny little spray paint spheres that would be matched to the very kind of spray paint that Ridgway used at his job as a spray painter at Kenworth. The tiny spheres could have been detected as far back as 1985, when a trace evidence expert offered to help. That might have saved 1 or 2 lives, but no one can really say that for certain. Eventually, the state would agree to not seek the death penalty, and in exchange, Ridgway would lead police to the bodies, he would confess to all of his killings, and he would help identify them. He would be convicted of 48 aggravated murders and 48 charges of tampering. He got 48 life sentences and another 480 years for tampering. After that sentence, he pleaded to 1 more murder, bringing the total to 49. Ridgway himself has no idea how many women he killed. He says he lost count. He pleaded guilty to 49, and authorities believe the real number is at least 71. They've linked 22 murders to him after his guilty pleas to the original 49. Except for a brief transfer to Colorado, he's been serving his time at Walla Walla, where he is accessible for open murder investigations. He is 74 now, and hopefully the final cases can be closed before he dies. Ridgway originally confessed to 3 murders where the victims were not identified. In January 2024, the last of the women was finally identified. King County authorities are still looking for 5 women expected to be victims of Ridgway, and they need information on other unsolved cases where the victims has been identified, but Ridgway denied not knowing anything about her murder. We'll also make shorter videos related to those cases, along with cases of a few other women who went missing near the same time in the same area. Thank you so much for listening, and like I said, if there is any information you have that could possibly help, please come forward. And if you are missing a person in your family that might have been in Seattle, Tacoma at the relevant times, and it's a big window, then please come forward as well. Thank you so much for listening. If you're enjoying these videos and want more, don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notifications so that you don't miss any videos. Thank you for watching. We really appreciate it.